Highland Park, Illinois, team leader Bill Stark. Chief, you have the floor.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Bill Stark, and I served as a team leader. I'm going to introduce Chief Dan Pease and let him introduce who's with us at the table here.
Great. Good morning.
Morning.
Obviously, I'm Chief Dan Pease. I've been with the department 30 years, 3 years as the fire chief. I'd like to introduce these guys in a little bit, but I'd like to talk about our department first. I'm honored to be here before you seeking accreditation status. We are a department staffed with 52 full-time personnel located 20 miles north of Chicago, along the shores of Lake Michigan. We respond from 3 fire stations and provide coverage to an area just under 13 square miles. We are a well-established community with no additional or available land for growth. If growth is to occur, it's through redevelopment. As a city, we have embraced the accreditation model, which is supported at all levels of our government. Currently, there are 3 departments in our community that are accredited: our Public Works Department, our Police Department, and our Fire Department. All departments have been accredited multiple times. For the Fire Department, this is our 4th time before the Commission seeking accreditation status. I'm going to introduce the rest of our team here today, but want you to know that this is a department effort and not just the results of this team. To my left is Deputy Chief, or to my right is Deputy Chief Larry Amadei. He's our accreditation manager. To his right is Lieutenant Joe Schragi, who is our union president. And to Joe's right is Lieutenant Dan Zerfis, who is instrumental in collecting, updating, and managing our data. I want to give a special thanks to Bill Stark and his team for their very thorough site visit. At no time do we take the accreditation process for granted. In fact, Bill and his team challenge us like no other team has challenged us. Bill's team helped us realize areas that we're doing well and areas for improvement. Bill's team made us realize that sometimes when you're too close to the trees, you can't see the forest. It's easy to get caught up in the operations of the department and not to see the issues that could be better addressed. Results of this visit pointed out 5 strategic recommendations and 7 specific recommendations, all of which we are in the process of addressing or have already addressed. With that being said, I'd like to turn the mic over to Deputy Chief Larry Amadei.
Hello there. Hello, I'm Larry Amadei.
There you go.
Okay, there we go. I'm Deputy Chief Larry Amadei. I'm a CFO and peer assessor. I've been on many visits, and I'd like to repeat what the chief said, that the team with Bill Stark, out of all the teams I've ever been on the last 10 years, was the most thorough and really knew their stuff, so they dug deep on us. We've been involved with the process since 2002. That was the first time we were accredited. And as the chief said, we fully agree with all the recommendations that were made. Even though this is our 4th cycle, we realized that with the 9th edition and personnel changes, you need to take each cycle seriously. And we've incorporated a lot of succession planning and involved a lot of people in the department in this one, since the chief and I are both in our 30th year on the department. I'd also like to let our local president say a few words, because he was very involved in the process and is a major part and will be the next accreditation manager for the next cycle. So I'd like to let him talk a little bit. Thanks.
It was an absolute pleasure to be involved in the accreditation process. As I'm stepping forward, I've realized, and I probably didn't introduce myself, Joe Schrage. I've been on the department 14 years, and I am Highland Park Local 822 president, and been president for 6 years. It has been a pleasure for me being involved in the accreditation process because it did open my eyes to a much larger part of the department. In the meantime, I had always previously had very good relationships with our city as far as the union goes with labor management. They've involved us in vision and planning. They've involved us in major decisions of where the department is heading. We've been involved with the safety committee. There's been an open line of communication and atmosphere for many years with my administration. That being said, the accreditation process continued to bring that even more full, because now I'm understanding many of the decisions that they're making in a much larger light. The union involvement in this process has been an absolute blessing. It's changed much of the culture of our organization in the sense that now it's being bled down into where our administration has always believed in accreditation very wholly. It is now being bled down into the lowest of levels, or our core levels in many ways, to where the line personnel actually understand where this is taking us and how it can benefit us as an organization and benefit us as an IAFF local. So with that being said, I see our culture changing, I see it growing, and I'm very happy to be able to take this on and continue with the accreditation process as the next manager. There's a lot of growth, and certainly I look forward to continuing the positive relationship we have. And I guess one example of the positive relationship we have, our last negotiations, we settled a 3-year contract in 2.5 hours. That 2.5 hours was preceded by many conversations and open lines of communication between our administration and the union, and a lot of trust. There's a lot of building trust that we've done throughout the years that continues to carry us forward.
Congratulations on your relationship, first of all, because it makes it, I know it makes a big difference. And both what you've instituted, Chief, but to get down to the line firefighter, it takes leadership in the union too, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Chief Stark, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I have a couple more comments. They're correct. This was not a smooth visit. We challenged them, and it wasn't me, it was the team. And honestly, you know, I talk to them quite often about Chief Amadei, he's the worrier. Chief Pease, he's the one that's like the optimist. And to get them in a room together is really interesting. And so in the report, we talked about some data challenges. They had all the data they needed, but they had a problem getting the data out. And we identified it as a team. And that team is Bill Williams, Stephanie Jaluzada, and Scott McGuire. Those three sat down and tried to help them get this data out. We had to help them. And they made phone calls. They had a network in Illinois, and they were able to get anybody they needed to. So we challenged them. They worked through it. They had some long hours, and they survived. You know, one of the things that we identified and they talked about is they're a city that's well established. They're not going to grow, but they did have an opportunity last year. They took over a community of Highwood, and that's 5,400 residents that they basically surround. They were able to provide that service, and one of the things we noted is that they only added one person to be able to do that, and it had nothing to do with operations. It had to do with risk reduction. They said that they needed somebody to help take care of inspections. So they focused on that and got extra money. They were able to handle them. They just finished their 1-year thing. The other thing that might stand out in the report, things that we identified that I think is important, is they have 12-person minimum staffing. They have a auto aid program that is outstanding. We had them, you know, show all the departments around. It looks like one big massive city with fire stations everywhere. And they have Mavis. We were part of our thing. We went to the Mavis headquarters because we wanted to understand that. and the mutual aid box alarm system, and so we were able to do that. They did work on most of the recommendations. One of the things that I know one of the questions that we're going to hear about is the turnout times, alarm processing times. They went to a new communications center, a new communications director, implemented station alerting in 2014, and are starting to see some of those changes. I spent quite a lot of time with the communications director, and he made it very clear that he doesn't work for them, they're a partner. And it impressed me because you don't find many directors that understand what ERFs are about, and so anyway, it was a good visit. It turned out right, we think, and so we're going to recommend them for accreditation. And your questions.
Okay. Just to start off, one thing I found interesting: 5,100 emergencies a year, but your numbers are different than most departments in the country, with 2,900 fires and rescues versus only 2,200 EMS. Is there something about the makeup of your community that causes that?
Go ahead, Chief. Yeah, basically, we get asked that a lot. It's a very wealthy community on Lake Michigan, 24 miles north of Chicago. Almost all residential on our east side of town has fire alarms, monitored fire alarms. So a lot of that number is false fire alarms that we go to.
Okay. All right. And as far as your staffing and your auto aid, how many times have you rely on auto aid each fire that you have?
Every day.
Okay.
Auto aid.
Are there ever any simultaneous calls, or how many units are you getting from auto aid?
Well, it can be, if we get multiple calls, we could get auto aid sometimes 3-4 times a day would be,
Okay. If it's just a single structure fire, moderate risk, how many units are you getting?
Well, I'd say we probably bring in, about 5 auto aid companies would come in on a structure fire automatically.
Okay.
From surrounding towns.
All right. Commissioner?
And that, let me add to that, that is the typical model in the area that we're at. All our surrounding communities also have the same auto aid and mutual aid agreements.
So are you giving mutual aid just as often as you're getting it?
That is correct.
All right. Commissioners? Chief Fredericks?
One of the things I thought was interesting when you speak of auto aid was, are you sharing the cost of the new truck you're purchasing? Is what it said in the report?
Yes, we are looking at doing that.
So do you share personnel for that, or personnel cost?
Through an IGA, we're going to work out the personnel issues. The city that we're considering sharing a truck with is willing to supply the manpower as long as the truck is stationed at their station.
And then the other question I had was on Station 32. Have you addressed the issue there, or do you have a plan to address the issue there?
Yes, we have a plan. Our Station 32, it's an 88-year-old station, and we have it has outlived its useful service life. The city has approved funds so that we could provide conceptual drawings and get community input. The week prior to this event here, we just finished 7 community meetings seeking input on the future of our next station. And the funds to replace that station has been put into our capital improvement plan.
Mr. Riley?
There was a mention regarding your large Ravinia Festival and using overtime for extra EMS units. Is that in-house overtime, or are you drawing from other agencies?
Yeah, we have a Ravinia Festival that's in our town. It's a concert venue, and it can increase our population on a real busy night to over 16,000 guests. And during those sold-out shows, we will staff a full-time ambulance with department personnel. Also on site at the Ravinia Festival is a nurse's tent that's staffed with a doctor and a nurse and we're really just the transport facility for that venue.
Chief Dongworth.
Great report, thank you. I think you predicted some questions on alarm handling and turnout. Actually, mine's not about alarm handling, it's just on your turnout. It looks like there's some room for improvement on turnout time, unless I'm mistaken, both for EMS and particularly for fire, as I recall. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit about what your plans are around it. There's also mention of aligning the department's SOG with the accreditation standards. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, we have addressed that, some of our SOGs with our benchmark times, came out different. We've corrected that already, and that was one of the recommendations. That's the one that's completed out of the 12 total recommendations we had. Turnout times, we've noticed that we get a little bit of, with the pre-alerting system, it seems like it steals a little bit from the call processing, where that's gotten a lot better. And then it's made the turnout times a little worse. But just in preparation for this, I'm putting together something where I'm gonna have a competition between the shifts, where they'll get a dinner at the end of the year for whatever shift comes out with the best times, because we all know firemen like competitions. So it's just one of the things we've thought of to try to improve turnout times.
Yeah, I mean, there's some technology that you can potentially use, countdown timers. We've experimented with those, which we found to be quite helpful, and a lot of it's just about awareness. We didn't communicate, more than about a year ago, actually how poorly we were doing on turnouts, and we're doing poorly. So I'm not standing here as the person who has all the answers, but it's certainly something that's well within the control of a fire department to manage better. So
Yeah, we have the turnout clocks by the rigs. Every once in a while I walk out there and point to it when the guys are getting in the rig.
thank you anyway.
And also, turnout times are also affected by this 88-year-old station that we have.
Right.
That is really tight quarters, so it does take longer for them to get their gear on, because literally I can stand between the two, an engine and an ambulance, and my shoulders touch both vehicles.
Yeah. Thank you.
Chief Thompson.
Competition is a healthy thing. I do a monthly newsletter for all my 11 fire stations, and they get to see the performance on each one. So I don't offer them ice cream or anything like that, but that's a good way of doing it.
Yes, sir.
Recommendation 6E3 talks about following applicable hose testing standards and putting all those records into your records management database. Has this been addressed? If so, is it following compliancy now? Are you doing all your tools and equipment, or did you just find out that your hose was not being addressed properly?
Yes, yeah, everything else was in order that the team checked out, but we did have a problem on the hose where there were some blank areas the last 5 years. So we have a firefighter that's in charge of hose, and I sat down with him and talked to him and said that from now on, especially for our ACRs, I want to see a yearly report that shows that it's entered in the firehouse system, and in our records, and that they are complete. So I had to have a sit down with the guy in charge of hose.
Right. It is clear to me that this is not a project or a binder on a shelf with your organization. For somebody like myself who's been bought off on this since 2004 and going just as fast as you have. And I'd like to commend you on that. From the top to the bottom, to your labor organization, and you willing to step up and take this next role on complicating your career a little bit. My past vice president of my local is now my accreditation manager, so it's good to do that. So, personal question for you, and I'm going to put you on the spot if you don't mind, Lieutenant. What do you think about credentialing? On the other side of this model, not just getting a certificate, but working just like the same as what the CFAI model is, but for yourself as an officer.
I see it as a value. My chief recently had told me that he would support me in that process, and I do plan on doing the company officer credentialing. I haven't started the application personally yet, but it will be happening soon.
Good. I've already sat on my accreditation manager as well, so good stuff. Maybe you'll get credentialed at the same time.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Going into that a little more too, we, in the past, didn't pay for CFAI credentialing, but we've made that a new rule now that anybody that wants to credential, we're gonna really encourage it and take care of the cost of that.
Good. Mr. Holland?
Thank you. The report talks about the assignment of a safety officer. I was wondering if those that are assigned to that position receive any formalized training or certification to the safety officer position?
Yes, we have all of our battalion chiefs, and most of our lieutenants are incident safety officers from the state of Illinois.
Seeing no other questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I will entertain that.
Chief Thompson, and a second from Chief Dongworth. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Highland Park.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Couple minutes.